Diesel, I guess, huh?
All right, we're live, folks.
Are we ready?
Yeah, we're live.
Yay! All right, so I will call the Creswell Budget Committee meeting, May 18th, 2020, to order at 6:27 p.m. We will do roll call, I believe. Oh, no. Yes, do roll call. Once again, here we go. Dave Stram. Hope you stuck around.
Yes.
Robert Jackson.
Vote.
Is that yes? You're here? Philip
Yes.
Smith. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Christina Percy.
Christina is here.
Jonathan Riddle.
Jonathan Riddle present.
Clark Kent.
Clark Kent present.
Shaman Michelson.
Chairman Michelson present.
Counselor Castilla.
Counselor Castillo present.
Counselor Prochu.
Councilor Brochu, present.
Counselor McReynolds Jr.
Counselor McReynolds Jr. present.
And it doesn't count if you put your laptop in front of a computer.
I was trying.
Counselor
No.
Counselor Drago.
Counselor Drago present.
Counselor Inman.
Counselor Inman present.
Counselor Knutson's here. Mayor Zetterval.
Mayor Zetterval, present.
All right, folks, we're all here. Now we have to have a public hearing for possible uses of state revenue sharing funds for fiscal year 2020-2021. The city will conduct a public hearing. Oh, sorry, Michelle.
I'm sorry, you skipped whether or not there's any members of the public who wish to
Oh,
address.
sorry. Public, is there public there, or did we receive any public comments?
We did not.
Thank you for keeping me on task. I just want to go choo, 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 choo. All right, number 2, done. Number 3, public hearing. Possible uses for state revenue sharing funds for fiscal year 2020-2021. The City of Creswell will conduct a public hearing on the possible uses of state revenue sharing funds in fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. These funds are proposed to be used for work on the comprehensive plan update and community contributions for nonprofit emergency needs, both appropriated in the general fund. The committee wishes to hear from anyone who is interested in commenting on the possible uses of state revenue sharing funds. If there's anybody there, then please let us know. I think Jim is checking if anybody's there. Yeah, Michelle?
I kind of need the words. I will now open the hearing so that I know what time. You know, it's kind of a formality, but I kind of need it for the record.
Okay, got it. So I will open the public hearing. I'm banging on my table. Has there been any written testimony received, or is there anyone in attendance who wishes to speak?
No, I'm looking at our city recorder.
Unmute.
She's shaking her head no.
Jim, you're still muted.
Sorry, Chair Knutson. I was looking at our city recorder and she's shaking her head no. And I
Okay.
checked the room and there is nobody present.
Okay. If no one chooses to speak, we got to leave the hearing open for 1 minute, and we'll just chillax and stare at each other for 1 minute. All right, I think that's been a minute. If there's no further testimony, then we will call the public hearing is now closed. Okay, moving on to discussion of the proposed budget. I believe everybody got the list of questions and answers from Mr. Piper. We can all go through, and if you guys have additional questions or if you want something answered specifically, I just asked for our reference if you could state the page number of the budget that you're looking at, or just state, oh, I'm looking at the questionnaire, question and answer sheet, just so we can kind of stay on the same page. Nobody has any questions? Our finance director has a question?
Well, Chair Knudsen, I just need some direction from the committee. I made some recommendations, or the staff actually conferred with Manager Hamburg, and I talked to our auditors to kind of get their feedback as well. And I have some suggested amendments to the budget. Specifically, the recommend reclassifying the $400,000 in expenditures for the CDBG housing rehabilitation grant from materials and services to capital outlay. And I also suggest that will help reduce the contingency to $352,000. And finally, reduce capital outlay on page 37 of the budget from $15,200 to $5,200. In doing this, the general fund will meet the fund balance reserve and contingency requirements of the city's fiscal policy.
All right, could you read that page number again for the budget?
The page number on page 37. Page 37, there's under capital outlay on page 37, equipment and furnishings. It says $15,200 on the proposed budget. I would ask the committee to amend that to $5,200, reducing it by $10,000. There was some capital outlay budgeted in that line that I think we can achieve through the capital reserve fund, the audio video equipment. We can make do with that and reduce that to $5,200 in the general fund. And then, I'm sorry, I didn't give page numbers for this. On the summary page, on page 45, operating contingency, $423,000. That should be reduced to $352,000. And then on page 43.
Hold on, just for everybody's clarification. So this is the, I don't know if your PDFs don't line up the corresponding pages to like the budget. Mine is about 20 pages off. So when you say 45, it's actually 65 on my PDF.
Yes, in the PDF.
Okay.
All right, is everybody tracking with me so far? So page 43 in the budget, or 63 if you're in the PDF. Under materials and services, proposed budget 2020-2021, it says $400,000. That should be moved down to capital outlay, under capital outlay, and not in materials and services. These expenditures are for construction projects or housing rehabilitation projects.
Okay, is there any questions regarding this? Comments?
Yes, I have questions, maybe comment. So Jim, thanks for all the work you did answering all those myriad of questions that were submitted. The concern I had on page 45 in the paper copy, the proposed ending fund balance is 667,474. And I think under the projected ending fund balance, that were in another question you gave the answer that the ending fund balance would be 1,980,904. It would be changed.
Oh, there was another question regarding the $30,000 that will be expended this year. The council just approved the funding to help small businesses. So what that will end up doing is changing beginning fund balance by $30,000. It'll reduce beginning fund balance in the budget by $30,000. So that would be another amendment. Good question. And I forget which question number that was.
And question number one. Question number one is where it started. And then question number 21.
Okay. Yeah, they kind of related with ending. They all end up at ending fund balance. Yeah, if we go forward with the microloan, which the council did approve that, there would be another $30,000 expended in the current year budget, so that everybody understands that would be the projected 2019-2020 budget, and it would reduce ending fund balance. In the proposed budget, it's $2,010,904. However, if you take $30,000 out of that, our beginning fund balance will now be $1,980,904. Good question, Dave. Yes, that's something that will need to be amended. And so where you'll see that beginning fund balance. Oh, go ahead.
My question, which you answered, you addressed it in question one, but I'm a little confused mainly by the last paragraph at the bottom of question one. I understand how the $400,000 CDBG grant is a pass-through grant, but my concern is we're going from ending fund balance of $1.9 million to a proposed ending fund balance of $667,000. That's a drop of $1.3 million. Where does that $1.3 million show up? I mean, that's a huge drop,
right?
And I'm not quite understanding where that's coming. And again, it doesn't meet with our fiscal policy, which will explain that. But I'm still a little bit confused. I wonder if you can help clear up the fog in my brain.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know there's reasons. I know there's reasons why we're increasing the ending fund balance, but I'm not quite grasping it yet. And I'm hoping you can give a little more explanation, you or Michelle, as to what are we doing there.
Sure, Dave. We've been trying to spend down some of that beginning fund balance. We have this policy to have 3 months to 4 months of reserves to kind of weather the time from when the fiscal year begins and when tax collections come in November. But currently we have almost enough reserves to fund an entire fiscal year. We've had this discussion with our auditors when they come to present the audit, and they talk about our days of reserves, and we're pushing almost 365 days at this point. It is good to have those reserves. However, there's projects that need to get done as well. And a lot of those are projects that are carrying over from the prior fiscal years that just have been pushed back due to unforeseen circumstances like the snowstorm in the prior fiscal year. And then, of course, COVID-19 in this fiscal year. The big ticket items that are going to reduce the fund balance, of course, is an interfund loan to the airport. So that will be paid back over 10 years. It's $450,000, and that will be returned, like I said, in over 10 years with interest. The same interest the general fund would earn if it was sitting in the local government investment pool. I thought there was some narrative in the budget on the other items that account for that 1.3 million. So there's transfers that will help operations and other funds. Currently, the airport and the building fund have been struggling under the current economic conditions. Both of those need some help, and both will see some improvements in the future with help in getting the funds. Oh, and Mayor Strand, the other thing I want to point out is the ending fund balance. You have to consider the amount of operating contingency that's also there. Hopefully, we don't have to use the operating contingency, and those funds will end up in ending fund balance as we close out the fiscal year. And that doesn't happen until the fiscal year is completed. So that is also a big chunk of that 1.3 million is the 352,000 that we're proposing and or recommending be left in contingency. I think those are the big.
So I guess my question then, Jim, Michelle, council members would be, does that fiscal policy need to be changed?
We did talk about that. I think it's a good fiscal policy that we have because it assures that we don't fall below a certain level. But I think also we need to take into account these kinds of large grants and maybe even loans that they shouldn't count against that. But of course, that's something that the city council can take under advisement. Doesn't have to do it tonight. But if there's a recommendation from this committee, we would be happy to bring it forward. But it is, this is the year that became apparent that maybe, we don't want to turn down a $400,000 grant, and we don't want to not take advantage of low construction costs right now to get the most bang for our buck at the airport. And especially when in the long term, that's going to make our airport bottom line look really good. So yeah, it's a very good question, Mr. Stram, and it's one worth looking at the council level and seeing if we need to amend that.
Thank you both. So Amy, I have three other questions, but I think I should wait for other people to chime in, and I'll chime in a little bit later before you're done with questions. How's that?
If you so choose.
I'll wait.
All right.
Let other people have a chance to talk.
All right. Are there any other questions, comments, clarifications?
I would like to bring up one of the questions.
All right.
So number 12, about the proposed water and sewer, along with the public safety fee. I thought it was an interesting question, although it was not mine. on what are the other thoughts of committee members, since we are dealing with a different world than what it was in January when we were making decisions. I'm throwing that out to the committee.
Yeah, may I comment?
Please.
Yeah, okay. There was a different recommendation by the committee than what is in the budget. And I'm glad someone pointed that out. Again, this is a decision that the budget committee could make to say, no, we want to stick with the budget recommendation of the Public Safety Committee. It's unfortunate that information that we received came at a time frame where we couldn't really bring it back to the committee to easily to make that decision. So we kind of punted it, but it is up to, it is something that we want to honor, that the committee did do this. And it's a question of, do you increase the public safety fee, or do you take more money out of the general fund? And as you know, we've set a policy on how much of the general fund dollars can be set. So we erred on the side of flexibility, but that doesn't mean that this committee has to go that direction. We just didn't know how else to put it in the budget. And so, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And it's probably worth a discussion. Just know that whatever amount is not covered by the fee, we'll have to reduce some other budget area in general fund.
Well, and this question too is about adding, whether or not to add the extra officer that we had recommended.
Right, and we did go with that recommendation. We felt that the work that the committee did was substantial and also was very well supported by the public at the time. In fact, the data showed that people were willing to even go up to even higher levels for 2 deputies. And I thought that the committee made a very prudent choice in saying, no, let's put 1 deputy in this year and maybe look again next year to see whether it makes sense to add another one. And I think, they took a very conservative position. I thought it was very wise. And they did have a lot of data to make that decision. So their survey was very well responded, had a lot of responses. And so, yeah, we just kind of worked off of that data.
I kind of agree with Misty on this one a little bit. Like with COVID coming and financials being harder with people, is it still something that we want to place into effect right now?
That's a good question. And it's hard for me to answer. To be honest with you, when I looked at the effects of what COVID-19 has done on our economy, we decided that we're not going to give cost of living raises this year. This last month, I think the CPI went up 0.13 for April, and that's a pretty bad indicator. However, the numbers are coming down and people are going back to work. We're in a phase 1 step, according to the governor's orders. Of course, today, as you know, or as you may be aware, those orders were brought into question as whether or not she has the authority to act on them. And that will be going to the Oregon Supreme Court. But yeah, it's a coin toss. The only problem is if we don't do it, if you don't give the appropriation this year and later you want to bring on the deputy when things get better, it's going to be much more difficult than if we have the appropriation and then the city council directs us to wait to bring on the deputy, wait 3 months or 6 months. It gives the city council some choices if you go along with this as to discussions about that. If you decide not to do the deputy, the extra deputy, then in essence you are going against the committee's recommendations and you are going to pretty much keep us from having a 4th deputy for the entire year, regardless of what the economy does.
Well, if they do recommend like to wait, that doesn't mean that the fees gets put back, right? It means the fee still goes. It just means you're waiting. Is that correct?
No, the city council has the authority to do the ultimate approval of the budget. So it will come before city council on June 8th for final approval. And at that time, the city council can say that they want you will vote on the contract. And you can say that you want the contract to be 3 deputies starting June 1st with a 4th deputy coming on January 1st. And you would adjust the fee at January 1st. So whenever that time, because the fee is structured in such a way that you cannot collect the fee unless there is an expenditure to go with it. So we would not over collect because we wouldn't have an expenditure to match it.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me.
That would be the portion of the fee just for the 4th deputy, not the whole fee. We would collect the same level. Well, actually, we would have to pay the 2% increase on the 3 deputies that we have now and the 1 sergeant come January 1st. So we'd have to make some recommendation to the city council regarding an increase in the fee to cover that 2% for the current contract. And then make a decision on, but then the city council could ask to delay the decision on adding the deputy later, but we need to have the appropriation in place in the budget, or else we have to call the budget committee together again, because it's such a large part of the budget to make an amendment. It's not a simple thing to do to change the appropriation. So if you appropriate it now, the city council can say, okay, but don't collect until we have the 4th deputy. They can do that. And we would follow that direction.
So following that trail of thought and how the process works, I was concerned about this as well. And we all voted to approve going forward to add another deputy based off of public safety committee recommendations, based off of discussions by council, and we went forward. But then everything changed. Lots of things have changed. And no matter what happens going forward with the economy, or, you know, if people are going to get their jobs back and there's going to be more money flowing, you know, we can't say for certain that we're going to bounce back and have it all. We also can't say for certain that we're not going to bounce back and then have nothing. But I would like to hear from other people on this committee on if you still agree with this, because if it does come down to city council and we do decide to move forward, I would like to do so with a better conscience versus just, well, we made this decision months ago, we approved it in the budget, and let's move forward as if nothing has affected this. You know, city council will discuss it when we vote in June, but the budget committee, who knows if they're going to be there. So I would just like to hear some different opinions about this. I think that
happy to weigh in. This is Councilor Prachu. That would be all right. So as Manager Amberg stated, one of the things that the committee did is that we had a pretty strong support for 2, and we went conservative. So I feel a little bit like because we've gone conservative, it helps us a little bit in this case. That's one thought. The other thought for me would be that we surveyed the public. We got the feedback from them, and if we don't do what they tell us to do, then what? So I just want to call those 2 things into play as we think about it. I think I would probably still be supportive of the additional deputy in this budget cycle. That's my opinion.
Okay, well, like I stated, you're a counselor. Going forward, you're going to have the ultimate say. So I was hoping that other committee members would stand up on the budget. And I see Philip Smith has his hand raised. And yes, when you guys brought that recommendation to us months ago, I do understand that, you know, having 2 not having 2 deputies, full-time deputies come on, but just choosing 1, that was conservative and that was a good choice on our part. But lots of things have changed just within the last month. So I can't say like with good conscience that we should just keep moving forward as if nothing has changed. Lots of things have changed. So I'm gonna.
And my apologies too. When you mentioned other committee members, I thought you were looking for public safety committee members. You're looking for other budget committee members to chime in.
Oh,
right?
yes, sorry, yes.
Yeah, that's all right. Please do. I'm also very interested in hearing what others have to say, especially, anybody that has thoughts would be appreciated.
All right, thanks. I think Philip Smith had his hand up and I'll let you speak.
Yeah, so I actually do have a question. I don't remember the survey. I do remember taking it, but I don't remember what kind of, if there were demographic questions. I'd be interested to know if there were any demographic specific questions that were asked in that survey. Because when I think about a flat fee being applied to everyone in the community, and then I think about things that are going on the past 6-8 weeks and how that affects people's income, that flat fee is going to be a larger portion of somebody's earnings, somebody's income. And that's going to impact the people who have a certain level of income. 45% of the population in 2017, 45% of the households in 2017 earned less than $50,000. And so, if you look at that as 2 people in a household, that's $25,000 a year per person or less. That's not a whole lot of money to be working with. And when you start thinking about the fact that they probably had reduced hours, some of them may or may not have lost their jobs, looking at assessing an additional fee for them to be paying, it's going to be a hardship, regardless of what that dollar amount is. But it affects people disproportionately in the community because, if somebody has one of those higher incomes, then, adding $15 to their utility bill doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But again, somebody who has, somebody's in one of those lower income levels, they're going to be pretty impacted by that.
Thank you. I agree. And that's why I want, I guess I want more discussion. And I know that opens up a can of worms for our manager and our finance director and our budget, but I think it's a discussion worth having. And so, yes, Manager Amberg.
I think it's important to understand what a fee is versus a tax. And this was something that we made sure that we put into the survey. People were asked if they would like to pay a proportional amount based on the value of their property, which is considered a very fair way to assess money for a service. A fee by itself has to be the same for everyone. We can't be flexible in assessing a fee because the thought behind a fee is that everyone benefits equally from the service. And so it's not an amount based on your value or your earning ability or anything like that. It's actually, which is why we can't collect it if we don't provide the service. If we don't provide that 4th deputy, we cannot collect a fee to cover its cost because that's the nature of a fee. The fee can only cover the cost of the service. So I just want to make that real clear that that a fee cannot be is not subject to gradation the way a tax would be. And there were quite a few questions that did discuss taxing and how many deputies and what do you think of this tax and what do you think of this fee? And at the end, we did ask people some demographic questions. And it was interesting, even the low income folks were supportive of an extra deputy. There are things that have changed as far as people finances go. But the question of the deputy is, has our crime changed and will it continue to be a difference? I appreciate Member Prochu's comment that, this is the expectation of the public. And if it changes, if we don't do what they asked, we're going to have a hard time doing another survey. The issue of whether or not to move forward as it is produced, as it is represented in the budget, only allows us to appropriate a spot for the fee. It doesn't guarantee that we will collect the fee. I want to make that very clear as well. So if we do not collect, if you decide as a city council to stay with 3 deputies all year long, then you have the flexibility to do that if you adopt the budget as it's presented. Because we just won't collect the fee and we'll have lower revenues than we projected, but we'll also have lower expenditures because the two have to balance out. If, on the other hand, you decide at this point to cut out the deputy, then if you'd have a change of heart at another time during this fiscal year, it's going to be much more difficult. It's much less flexible for you to make that decision. Neither one really impacts what we put on the utility bill. What will be put on the utility bill will reflect the cost of the service that city council decides at what level. So there's kind of a disconnect between the budget number and the actual amount of revenue that will be received, because city council can take action to reduce the amount of revenue. That makes sense.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak regarding this particular issue, or if you have other questions you want to move on with? I see Councilor Castilla.
Yes, Michelle, if I understood you correctly, if we move forward right now as is in regard to the public safety, then we do not have to collect that fee, correct? We can decide not to collect?
You are correct.
Okay, good, because I'm a little concerned about this issue, because some folks I've talked to, they're concerned that when their unemployment runs out, they still may not have a job to go back to. And then there are folks that they're looking at their long range impact of their businesses that they haven't seen yet. So I believe that there's a lot of folks out there that are still going to suffer long term. So I think I'm glad this is here to discuss. I guess normally it would go to a work session or something maybe. I would like to, if we were to vote right now tonight, I would probably say to vote to wait. But after what you just said, I believe that we can vote later to not collect the fee. And if so, that is something I think we should take a look at.
Yeah, I think based on the conversation tonight, staff will present the contract as 2 different options. And you can take option 1, which is continue with the current service, but raise the fee to cover the 2.2%, or option 2, which it would include the 2.2% and an additional deputy. And the city council can vote on that. The concern that I have is that it takes away some flexibility down the road if by September, if everything is great. I'm not saying it will be, but if the tide turns, you guys can then, and crime goes up. It's very simple to then, we'd even have time to do a survey to see if we should increase it. And we could, the public safety committee could put out a survey that says, hey, we didn't increase this because of the COVID-19. Looks like things are back on track. How do you feel about it now? And that might be the best route to go, because it takes into account the promises sort of that were made or implied by the public safety committee. It still gives dignity and respect to their decision, as well as honoring the fact that this is a really weird time and nobody can really tell what's going to happen.
This is Jonathan Riddle. I have a quick follow-up or relation to the budget clarification question on, so basically it sounds like, and I can't see, is it a 1-to-1 fee to cost? So if if we voted on it tonight, there's a 667, or whenever we vote, 474 ending fund balance. If it was voted down, it sounds like there still would be the same ending fund balance. There'd just be less resources. So it's not going to impact that difference there. Is that correct? Because there'd be less resources. So it's kind of a one-to-one. We're just allowing the council the opportunity later on to choose to follow up with the Public Safety Committee or not. And if we said no now, it would take that away, yet the budget would, it's not like 200K would be tucked in reserve because it's a one-to-one.
Right. Actually, the ending fund balance, if you voted no, would be reduced as far as revenue and expenditure because they have to balance. So if you voted tonight to not allow for the fourth deputy, then both would have to be adjusted. I hope you have your calculator, Jim. Yeah, both the ending fund balance would, ending fund balance for next year would have to be adjusted.
I'm following what,
By the amount that would not be collected because we would not be authorized for that fourth deputy.
yeah, and to answer your question, Jonathan, you're correct. It wouldn't change the ending fund balance. You're absolutely right. It would be like Manager Amber just said, it would be a one-to-one. So we take away the revenue, we'd also take away the expenditure. It would be net neutral to ending fund balance.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. So with
We
that,
still have to
my
make sure to cover the 2.2% though.
yes, that is an increase in both, I would assume. So then, from my committee member view, non-counselor view, it does, at least in my mind, make sense to lean towards allowing that opportunity, since it's not like the money is not. This is just my opinion as a member, but it's not impacting the city up or down. It's the people, and I'm not unconcerned for people that have lost out, but it handcuffs the counselors coming into that June meeting if we said no now. So that's where I think Councilor Prochu was saying. Anyways, let's take it with a grain of salt, but it does give opportunity without. That makes sense.
It does. Thank you so much for your comments. Is there anyone else? I think, Martha, you had your hand up earlier. Did you want to say something? Or do you have a question?
Thank you. Thank you, staff, for building in this level of flexibility. I appreciate it. I appreciate that it's not responsive in expecting a crime wave should this weird time continue. I'm not expecting a crime wave, but if things go sour, the same people who are not comfortable paying the added fee will be asking us why we're not incurring the costs to protect them. So I really like that it's building in that we can respond as this dynamic situation unfolds. So thanks. So I say yes to whatever staff's recommending, public safety wise. And everything else, really.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this issue or has any other questions? If we want to just move on with some more questions regarding the budget, comments, concerns?
I would, Dave Stram again. So I really do want to applaud the council and the Public Safety Committee and the staff. I know you've done a lot of work on public safety. That's been a concern that we've had in Creswell for many years, and we've slowly worked to go from 2 1/3 officers in 2013 to 4 today. So I just applaud you for your efforts. I like, Michelle, what you are saying, and Jim, about keeping it in the budget and then giving the council the opportunity to continue discussing. I like what I'm hearing from the council, and I really have confidence, councilors, that you have a great concern for our public, for all the members of our community, and want to both make sure we have adequate public safety and at the same time be very sensitive to people who have very limited income and loss of employment. So thank you for your work, and council members, I have a lot of confidence that you will and come up with what you think is good timing for moving forward with it.
Thank you, Dave. Alonzo, I think I saw your hand come up.
Yes, just real quick. I like what you said, Michelle, in regards to putting the survey out again, if that is possible to do that again real quick, because it was the public that we got this confidence to go forward with the second, or maybe two officers. So it would be really interesting to hear what they have to say now of COVID-19. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else on the phone? Because I can't see your hand being raised, you just gotta speak up. Questions, comments? If you want to think about it, I have a question for our finance director, Mr. Piper. So on question 7, it talked about setting aside $10,000 for the public safety fair, which we did 2 years ago. And when we discussed this 6 months ago, that's what our plan was, to have a public safety fair again in the fall of 2020. With our county fairs, our state fairs, everything's being canceled through the summer and into the fall, it sounds like. I just wondered if we do appropriate $10,000 to have the public safety fair, and yes, yay, everything's great and nobody's dying from COVID-19 and we all go back to normal, great. But what do we do with that $10,000 if we don't spend it on the public safety fair?
That's a good question. Again, appropriating the amount doesn't necessarily mean that the city will go ahead and the city council will approve the spending of the funds. We would only spend that if we had the public safety fair, and we want to leave in the budget. We wanted to leave that open to the council to decide at any point during the fiscal year if they wanted to hold a public safety fair.
So I know we talked a lot last city council meeting about appropriating different funds. We're trying to get grants to help small businesses. And oftentimes throughout the year, we'll amend different things in order to appropriate those things. So when it comes to the fall and we decide, we're not going to do this, let's scrap it. But then something else comes up that needs $10,000. That's when that will come to city council and we will get to make the decision on where that $10,000 is going to go, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear. Is there anybody else that has any questions, comments, concerns?
I have 2 more.
All right, Dave.
This is
take
Dave.
it away.
Okay. So question number 2 has to do with tourism dollars and the Chamber of Commerce. Are we anticipating entering into a contract with Chamber of Commerce for tourism?
That's a great question.
And do we know anything about 4th of July?
we
I have to unmute.
go ahead.
Do you want me to take that one, Jim?
Yes, please, Manager Amber. Go ahead.
COVID-19 has impacted transient room tax tremendously. And that's basically the money that we pass through to the chamber for special events. Additionally, chamber has special events that are fundraisers that they are not able to hold at this time. We probably will not be receiving enough funds, and there's even talk, I've heard rumors, this is not for sure, but I've heard that there's rumors that because of the impact onto the tourism industry, that any TRT that's collected this year would go right back to them. And the state can do that. If that occurs, we won't have any money to pay a contract for the chamber. And so it's kind of an interesting opportunity for us because we can forego that payment to the chamber because we will not have the revenue. Otherwise, we would have to take it out of general fund to honor that contract. But the contract expires June 30th of this year. And I have had discussions with the chamber that it's probably best for them to forego the celebrations this year, save their money, and have a really great 4th of July next year. Because if they had one this year, they might not have money for next year, and we can all get together and have a good time, but there won't be any money to do it. Additionally, as far as the parade goes, that's put on hold by the governor's order that there will be no festivals or large gatherings. Our parade is obviously a large gathering. However, I want the city to do something to support the 4th of July. And a couple things have come to mind. I don't know if they'll come to fruition at this point. Like I said, they're just kind of floating around in my head. But one is to have a sidewalk chalk art contest where you put up a sign and say, hey, come look at my sidewalk, and we come and we judge them, and the winners we'll have various categories, and the winners will get Dairy Queen certificates, and also to have a contract with the Kona Ice Truck to go to the various neighborhoods and give away free ices to go along with all of the barbecues and things that will be going on at people's houses. Hopefully by the 4th of July, you'll be able to have a pretty good crowd at your house. We just can't have it on the street, and we can't have it at the park. Those are two areas, public festivals, that are specifically spelled out in the guidance document. So did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
My second and last question had to do with question number 17, and it has to do with the development of the 2nd Street Park. And it looks like the street improvements on South 2nd Street, and if I'm reading the capital improvement plan correctly, it looks like that's out 2021, 22, 22, 23. So am I right in thinking that 2nd Street Park will be developed for 24 to 36 months?
It could be longer than that. The plan that, I've been working with the Park Committee Board, and we took a look at our parks and the CDB, or in the, not CDBG, the funding that we have available in our
SDCs.
What is the name of that fund now?
System Development
I'm
Charters.
sorry. And our SDC fund, yes. They wanted to go for the low-hanging fruit first. So we had a piece of property that we already owned out on Cloverdale, and that's been converted into a bike park for less than, maybe around $5,000 to $7,000. So that's pretty slick, and they were pretty excited about that. And we would have had a grand opening ceremony, except it was planned for Bike Day, and of course that came and went with COVID. And the other thing is possibly a play dirt track out at Grasslands with some bathrooms and some signage and maybe some benches for just a few $1,000s, so that area would be a play area already. And then to really focus on 2nd Street Park, to make it an inclusive playground with a splash pad and some really nice amenities for everyone to play on. That's going to cost millions of dollars. And to do that, I am working on grants to try and get some, use the the system development charges as a match for those state grants, so that we can do a spectacular park at 2nd Street Park. So it may take a while. We've started sort of developing it with the Hiroshima tree that's down there. It's a very nice tree with a beautiful rock that was taken from the foundation of the old schoolhouse. It was ground down and a plaque was put on it that identifies the tree. It's kind of the first step in developing 2nd Street Park. The other thing we did is we put in an inclusive swing feature at Holt Park. We need to think about the inclusiveness of our parks, and we need to think about that pretty seriously. We need to design a park around inclusiveness. When I put up that swing on Facebook, it received more likes than anything else the city has put up in a while. People want to use that swing. They want to use it with their kids. They want to go as a family. When President Knudsen and I listened to folks at the elementary school, I heard loud and clear they want inclusiveness at this play structure. And it's kind of unfortunate that the one at the school wasn't designed that way. But I think we can do something really special for our community. But it is going to take a lot of money, and it may take a long time.
Thank you. That's a great explanation.
Good job.
All right, Dave, do you have any more questions for us?
No. Can't think of any.
I think I saw Jim Pepper had his hand up.
Oh, I'm just gonna add to that the comment about that I made about timing it with the street construction was something earlier we were looking at as a group with the Public Works Director, and if you can time projects that involve the same equipment, say you want to pave a parking lot and you already have the asphalt truck there to do the street. There's some benefits there in timing those projects together. Kind of like when we time water and sewer lines to be replaced when we're doing the street projects. So I just wanted to add that was part of my comment, and I wanted to add that.
And to piggyback on top of that, we know that we have to move the water line and the sewer line on the park property.
Right.
So it'd be good to do it at the same time that we do this project.
Sounds like a good plan. All right, are there any other questions from budget committee members that you have, concerns? This is our city money we're talking about. Important stuff. Speak now or email us later. Complain to us later. All right. Seeing nobody wants to speak anymore, I think everybody's checking out on me here. I will entertain a motion to approve or disapprove this budget. Oh, hold on. Manager Ember has a question first, or a comment. Manager Amberg, you had your hand up first. And then I think Kevin.
I think we might have all said we're thinking the same thing. Whoever makes the motion needs to make it as amended to accommodate for the change in the capital expenditure for the grant and for the
Reduction.
Go ahead, Jim.
The reduction in contingency and the reduction in capital outlay in administrative, in administration.
So can somebody make a motion as amended, or do they need to be very specific on what the amendments are?
Specific, please.
Our recorder says specific, please.
All right, Kevin, did you have a question or comment or a motion?
I just wanted to know how the motion would be too, but I don't have it written down as far as these 3 or 4 items that were mentioned. So we would probably need to clarify that one more time.
Jim, can you write it down and show it to the camera?
And someone else would have to make the motion. I don't have the video going today.
Could we amend it as responded to in the questions and answers? No. Okay. Give me just a moment. I'm going to confer with our city recorder.
I had the CDBG grant one written down, but then I didn't. I stopped writing the rest. So reclassify from material services to capital outlay for the CDBG grant. So I believe that's one, but I'll let Roberta confirm. And then I forget the other ones.
Notice that we have a chat window with this Uber conferencing program too. You could probably pop it into the chat. Wanted to, Jim.
We should do it all amounts, or you write them in there.
I'll chat them in.
Hope they can read it.
Oh, I'll chat it in. That's a good idea. Let me add the chat feature. New message.
Better living through technology. Make sure you record those chats for the minutes though, and turn them into Roberta as public record.
Thank you, Amy.
Good.
Martha has a friend joining her.
Someone let the kitty in.
I think
already
Mike went to sleep. Oh no, they're at the other end of the house. I hear them crashing around.
Okay, I'm going to put these amendments up one at a time, but you'll have to read all of them. I can type. You're all testing my typing skills.
We're all watching.
No pressure, Jim, no pressure.
Just don't mess up the numbers.
Right? I'm going to double check with the answer sheet here. One more. There's one more piece. There's actually there's three pieces, but I think there's one more piece too, because we had the question about beginning fund or the $30,000 grant in the current fiscal year, reducing beginning fund balance. Reduce beginning fund balance by $30,000.
Jim, do you want to do 50K on that? Or do you want to wait until we find out from the state?
I was gonna.
Or does the committee want to do 50?
I was gonna wait. But really, it's the committee's decision. If we reduce it by 50,000, I think if we reduce it by 50,000, we're kind of getting ahead of the decision by the state, and that's also going to trigger some other things in the budget. We may have to reduce some appropriations to meet the capital, the ending fund balance reserves. So, are we pretty certain we're going to get the 50,000 at this point? Would be my question.
Council's direction was that if we submitted for the grant and we received the grant, that it would be 50,000. that would be donated. But we can always do that after the fact with the city council. Sure, we're supposed to know this week or next week whether or not we get the award, because it has to be expended before the end of this fiscal year. So it doesn't really affect next fiscal year's ending fund balance. It affects this fiscal year's ending fund balance.
But that'll affect the beginning fund balance.
The beginning fund balance.
Beginning fund balance is really just a best guess estimate. I will go back to my years of an auditor reviewing audit reports. As long as you are within reason with your beginning fund balance estimate, there is no concern. I think we're doing this in good faith, not knowing if we actually qualified for the additional funding from the county. But that's my answer. Again, it's really up to the committee.
Yeah. Well, the city council can also make that amendment on June 8th when they adopt the budget, because we should know by then.
Correct.
I'm sorry. I just thought I'd bring it up as part of the discussion.
Michelle, you might want to clarify to the other committee members who are not part of this discussion, like council was, so that at least they understand what's going on.
Okay. City council approved the creation of a microloan fund to assist small businesses in Creswell. This year, we did not hire a planning specialist because of the COVID-19 and timing and a whole bunch of things. When we reclassified a person who had an injury, it was a big chain of events. So we didn't hire him this year. So we had the savings from that position. And I have wanted to do something to help our small businesses here in town, especially those who have not been able to get the PPP or the emergency funding through the CARES Act. So I came to the city council and said, hey, can we use this money that was not spent on this position to create a microloan fund? And I would suggest $30,000, which is the position was worth more than $30,000, but I thought I would be conservative. When we got involved with making this fund viable, we wound up starting kind of a cascade of events that happened, and a lot of cities wanted to jump on the bandwagon with us. We needed to reach $100,000 in order to qualify for Community Lending Works to actually manage the grants or manage the microloans. We weren't able to get to $100,000, just the small cities and the amount that we could contribute. It's the end of the year and there's a lot of stuff going with COVID, and we just couldn't get $100,000 altogether. So the county stepped in, and with the assistance of RAIN Oregon, which is a organization that we contract with to assist our small entrepreneurs here in town. They worked very hard and came up with over $600,000 worth of funding. And at the same time, the state started a program. The state set aside $5 million to start a grant/microloan program for the exact same target that we were looking at. And so we had a week to put together a grant request, and it could be as much as a one-to-one match. We're not guaranteed a one-to-one match. The state is releasing the $5 million in two different tranches, and the first tranche is $2.5 million. So we've got a $650,000, $675,000 ask going to the state to see if they will match it. If they match it, City Council said that we could go from $30,000 to $50,000 in a microloan program for our local businesses. This microloan program, because we've met the $100,000 ceiling, will be an ongoing program. So it's not just something that we can offer one time. We can offer it as a revolving loan to our small business people who need a little help from time to time. And it will be managed by Community Lending Works. The way Community Lending Works makes this attractive to a small business person is for the first 6 months, there is no requirement to pay back the loan. For the first 6 months you're in business. The second 6 months, you pay back a 2% interest on the loan. And then the following year, you pay back loan principal as well as 2% interest until the loan is paid off. So that's kind of the program that we're starting. And I think we're all pretty excited about it. So I'd be happy to try and answer any questions if anybody has any about the program. But it was approved by City Council to set aside $30,000 from the savings of this position and to bump it up to $50,000 if we're successful in getting matching grant money from the state.
All right, so it looks like everybody should have a chat with the amendments that are proposed. And I'm entertaining a motion to approve 2021 budget.
Hi, this is Kent, and I was wondering if I could make that motion.
We will accept your motion, Clark Kent.
Okay. I would like to propose that we accept the proposed 20 to 21 budget with the following amendments. To reclassify the CDBG grant for materials and services to capital outlay at $400,000. Reduce the general fund contingency to $352,000. Reduce capital outlay in administration to $5,200 and reduce beginning fund balance in the general fund by $30,000.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kent. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Mayor Zetterval seconds.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, we will take a vote and I will go through the roll call. Dave Stram. Did we lose Dave? Dave Stram, yay or nay? Oh, there you go. We can't hear you though. All right, I'll come back to you, Dave. Robert Jackson.
Yes.
Philip Smith.
Yes.
Christina Corsi.
Christina Corsi, yes.
Jonathan Riddle.
Jonathan Riddle, yes.
Clark Kent.
Clark Kent, yes.
Shaman Michelson.
Shaman Michelson, yes.
Dave Stram, you with us? So we can't hear you, but it looks like you're here. So sometimes it glitches out and you have to leave and then come back in and it'll show up you coming back in later on. But I'm moving on. Councilor Castilla.
Councilor Castilla, yes.
Councilor Prochu.
Councilor Prachu votes yes.
Councilor McReynolds Jr.
Councilor McReynolds Jr. votes yes.
Councilor Drago.
Counselor Drago, yes.
Councilor Inman.
Counselor Inman, yes.
Councilor Knudsen votes yes. And Mayor Zetterval.
Mayor Zetterval, yes.
Dave Stram, are you back?
Just trying.
Yeah, I see it. Trying to pop up. Well, we have a majority vote. Could we?
Dave, are you there?
Hey, Jim, what's Roberta say about, could we move forward with our vote? Manager Amberg?
Can you see him? Can he nod yes or do no?
No,
No.
doesn't have video. He doesn't have video, and I see his mic keep trying to come in and come out.
Can we give him a quick call or can he text us?
Oh, there he is.
Jim, do you have his number?
I do.
Okay.
Oh, I see him popping.
I hate to exclude him at this point. It was such an important part of the conversation.
Let me text him, Rob.
Could you just type it in the chat?
Yeah, if he can hear us, he could do that.
Dave, if you can hear us, call us
Give us a sign.
or chat us. Text us.
I'm sending a text right now. He is responding. Mayor Graham votes yes.
All right, tell him thank you.
Thank you.
Will do.
So that passes that. The next one is the motion to approve taxes for 2021. Entertaining a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Oh, okay. Yes, Mayor Zetterball.
Okay, I move to approve taxes for the 2020-2021 fiscal year at the rate of $2.6705 per $1,000 assessed value for operating purposes in the general fund to the certified tax by the tax assessor.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Castilla. If there's no further discussion, I will take a roll call vote. Dave Stram.
I am texting him right now. You can proceed, and when I get it, I will answer back. If that's acceptable.
All right. Robert Jackson.
Robert Jackson, yes.
Philip Smith.
Philip Smith, yes.
Christina Corsi.
Christina Corsi, yes.
Jonathan Riddle.
Jonathan Riddle, yes.
Clark Kent.
Clark Kent, yes.
Shaman Michelson.
Shaman Michelson, yes.
Councilor Castilla.
Councilor Castilla, yes.
Kevin Prochu.
Councilor Prochu, yes.
Councilor McReynolds Jr.
Councilor McReynolds Jr., yes.
Councilor Drago.
Counselor Drago, yes.
Councilor Inman.
Counselor Inman, yes.
Councilor Knutson, yes. And Mayor Zetterball.
Mayor Zetterball votes yes, and I will read the vote from Mayor Stram. I said your vote in regards to the taxing authority motion. He says, I can see and hear all of you. Not sure why you can't see me, but I vote yes.
Thank you, Mr. Stram. So I think we did it. Unless there's anything else.
No, thank you, committee members, both city councilors and volunteers from the community. We appreciate your hard effort in this endeavor, a big lift during an unsure economic time. I really appreciate everyone's insight and questions, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew they were appreciated.
Okay,
Yes,
Thank you, Jim.
And just for transparency's sake, I would like to make sure that the committee knows, as well as our public knows, that the public record of Dave's vote and my text messages to him, I will take a screenshot of it and I will make sure that our city recorder gets that. So all votes are open and above board.
I'm sure Roberta's going, yay.
Roberta says thank you.
Yes, thank you all for bearing with us, especially new committee members. This isn't normally how we do this. I know it's weird and strange and awkward, but thank you so much for bearing with us and helping us in this process and getting our budget passed in a timely manner so we can move forward and hopefully make the best of it, I guess.
And hopefully we can come out of this COVID-19 crisis a better city and with no loss of life and no illnesses that prevent some of us from living a happy life. So
All right, with that, the meeting is adjourned, 7:47 PM.
Thanks, everybody.
Well
Really
done,
appreciate it.
Chairperson Knudsen.
Bye. We'll see you guys next time.
Good night.
Thank you.
For all your hard work on the budget. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.